Hi friends, happy Vlogmas part 6. So I took a few days off from vlogging. After we had art recording, I was really busy. My parents were in town, so I was hanging out with them and I just felt like chilling out a bit. But here we are again. Yesterday was the World Cup. Argentina won. My fiance Jeremias, he's from Argentina, if you didn't know. And his dad is in town actually. He got into town on the day of the World Cup. His dad is kind of an anomaly in Argentina. He does not like soccer. He's not a fan. But it was fun to watch the match. Now, things have been a little bit busier with preparing for the holidays. This morning we did a little Christmas shopping in Rockefeller Plaza, which was kind of crazy to be there. Didn't think that went through. So many people there, but that was fun. And yeah, Jeremias' dad, this is his, I think, only third time in the US. So we want to show him the sights, and yeah, he speaks no English, and I am a budding Spanish student for the past like 9 years. But I am working on it. The two of us went grocery shopping by ourselves earlier, so it's always fun to practice my Spanish. Yeah, but anyway, so right now we are getting ready to go out to dinner, and I thought that I would answer some of the questions that you left for me over on the community tab, and we could do a little Q&A. So I'll try to answer some of them now, and then I'll answer some more later in the video. There's 91 of them, okay. I'm gonna do my best. Okay, first question. Will you keep up with the recent style of vlogging that you've been doing? I love the editing that you do and the comfy vlogs. First of all, thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoy them. I think I will. I have been really enjoying making them. I think that I do like making the traditional sit down, talking about a topic videos, but that I like to make the vlog. I feel like it's fun to try to tell a story and to summarize things that have happened in the day. I love learning new ways to use my editing software and just trying to be creative and artsy with that. So I think so. If you guys are interested in them, I'm definitely still going to be making this style of video. How do you handle rejection from top music schools? I submitted my pre-screening materials, and for some schools I got denied a final audition. First of all, congratulations for even submitting the materials for pre-screening. I know it's a ton of work. I remember having to do that for both undergrad and grad school, and so it's a huge process. So kudos to you for even doing that. I think that, you know, rejection is hard. And I'm not sure if it gets easier when it's something that we really want. Personally, for me, I remember that one of the rejections that I faced during the school process, auditioning process, was for a school that I thought was more of a safety school, Temple University, and I was rejected. And also that was the first audition that I had had, and to have found out so soon afterwards that I was rejected before I even had my other auditions, that was really upsetting. It's really hard to keep going when you feel like someone has told you, some institution or person that you respect has said, hey, you're not the right fit for this program. I think maybe thinking about it in terms that it's not the right fit for you might make it a little bit easier. You know, you don't want to be in an institution where it's not right for you. I really do believe though that you're gonna end up in the place that's the right fit for you. And also that is one person and one institution's opinion, you know? That's not gonna define how you're gonna play for the rest of your life. That's not gonna define everything about you and your career as a musician. I also try to sometimes think of it as like the right fit will be out there for me when I'm rejected from something. Like maybe that wasn't the thing that was meant to be. It didn't line up. But I know that it can feel really tough when it's something like a school. But as cheesy as it sounds, I would just say keep going. And the right fit is going to be out there for you. And also just, you know, allowing yourself to feel down about it You can feel angry and you can feel disappointed and feeling all those feelings, but then also trying to move forward and let that be what it is, devoting yourself to preparing for these other auditions. So I'm thinking about you. I really hope that your auditions go well and that you have some luck with the pre-screening process. Also, the pre-screening process, I remember another school, for Manhattan School of Music, that my pre-screening was denied. I sent in the CD and they said, no, we're not going to give you an audition. And that was a school at the time that was, I thought, my dream school that I really wanted to go to. And I ended up not even getting an audition. But in the end, I know that I was so happy in my experience at New England Conservatory, and that was by far the most perfect fit for me at the time, and my teacher was the most perfect teacher that I could have asked for that moment in my life. That was exactly where I was supposed to be and what I needed to have. So as kind of cheesy as it sounds, just trusting the process, just trusting that it's going to work out and having faith that you're going to end up where you're meant to be. I know that doesn't really make the rejection part any easier, but so I'm thinking of you. Good luck. What tips do you have to get better at intonation? Because I have a wrong idea in my head of how high or low notes should sound. That's a great question. That's something that I am still working on myself. Intonation is gonna be a forever practice for most of us, I would say. For all of us, I would really think, unless you are not a human. I think there's a lot of ways to improve your intonation. And one of them is definitely listening. I think doing some type of oral skills classes, those can be really helpful, whether it's sight singing, solfege, or ear training with dictation and all of that. Anything that you can do where you have to really use your ear, I think, away from the instrument can be really helpful. So I'd say apart from doing some oral skills studying is to practice with a drone, and that's really going to force your ear to listen. And you can change the drone to be any pitch. Maybe you're playing in C major and you put it on C, or you put it on the fifth, put it on G. You can work on intervals that way. Of course, working with the tuner and seeing the needle move can be useful too, but I think that anytime you can do something where you have to match a pitch and play along that way, it can be really useful. And also, I would say listening to great flutists, listening to recordings of them, that's going to help you get the sound of the flute in your head. Find someone that's playing, and their sound, their concept of sound really inspires you, and I would say try to listen to recordings and study those recordings. When did you buy your first professional flute, and how did you know that you were ready for it? So I got my flute that I have now, my Miramatsu, when I was about to graduate from high school. And I knew that I was ready for a new flute because I was going to conservatory. And I had a flute that I was playing on through a merit scholarship that I had won through this foundation. I had won the use of this flute, so I had to give the flute back. So I needed an instrument to play on, and that's kind of how that happened. I think looking back on it, I probably would maybe have waited to work with my teacher in my undergrad to select my flute. But I also think that it was the right instrument for me then, and I think it still is. There are some times that I'm like, ooh, I'd love to try something different. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe flute shopping in the future, or head joint shopping. Okay, I'm gonna dry my hair and we'll be back in a sec. How old were you when you started the flute, and why did you choose the flute instead of another instrument? So I was 10 years old when I started flute. I was in 4th grade, and I think I've maybe told this story before, so sorry if I'm repeating myself. One of my cousins played the flute. I remember thinking that she just looked so beautiful, so elegant when she was holding that silver tube. And I remember going home and standing in front of my mirror and I had this little like slide whistle, and I would hold it to the side and just pretend I was playing the flute. So I think that that had an impact on me. And also I just fell in love with the sound. I remember the band teacher demonstrating the different instruments, and I just really fell in love with the sound of the flute. And I almost picked viola when we had the chance to pick a string instrument in 3rd grade, but I ended up wanting to wait for the wind instruments. And I'm glad that I waited. It would have been fun to be a violist, but here we are, Katie Viola. Do you feel any uncomfort with the engravings on your flute? No, I don't. I am not even really aware that they're there. I think when I play flutes that don't have the engravings, maybe then I can slightly feel the difference, but I cannot really feel it. And in fact, I think that, you know, they say that it helps so that it doesn't slip on your chin, the engraving on the embouchure plate. Did you ever participate in jazz band as a kid? I did. I was in jazz band. I participated in jazz band when I was in middle school, I think 7th and 8th grade. I think I did it for 2 years, but I did it on piano, so I never got the chance to have my little jazz flute moment. I never really learned about improvisation or any of that. It was more just like I was keeping the harmonies, laying down the harmonies in the background, but I would love to learn how to improvise and play jazz flute. Oh my gosh. But that's just a whole nother skill set, a whole nother set of knowledge. So I don't know, maybe one day. Do your lips sometimes tremble when you play, and what do you do to make it stop? It happens very rarely, but you know when it did happen the other day? When I had a double cappuccino instead of a single, 2 shots of espresso. So I think that definitely limiting caffeine, because that can, you know, cause that unwanted, uncontrollable vibrato just from being overly caffeinated. So I would see if you have any caffeine intake, maybe try to cut back on that and see if that's what's causing it. But I think it can also happen sometimes due to nerves, and that's a whole nother topic. I think the 3rd reason why it might happen is just from exhaustion and overplaying, and definitely I think if that's the case, I would try to take more frequent breaks and to stop if you can and rest, but definitely see if the caffeine thing might be a component. Best place for a self-taught flutist to start learning. I'm almost 30 and want to pick it up as a hobby, but have no idea where to start. There's so much available on the internet, I feel overwhelmed. I would say if you can get a teacher, that is ideal. Even if you only meet with a teacher a few times, maybe just to get set up and working with a book that progresses and takes you through the different notes and learning about rhythms and all of that. And also just the flute is difficult to learn. It's difficult to start, and it's difficult to start beginners on. So if you have the option to meet in person, I would definitely try to do that. And like I said, even if it's only a few times, that's going to be better, I think, than trying to struggle and figuring it out on yourself, by yourself. But I know lessons can be expensive. I think that, yeah, there are a lot of free resources out there. I have a beginner flute video that's like a very basic introduction. But I would say that, you know, sticking with a book, a lesson book, that could be really helpful. There's a lot of them out there. The Rubank book is a classic. That's one that I often use with my adult beginners or adults who have some knowledge about music and are maybe coming back to it for the first time in a while. Or even having a teacher where you can just check in like every month, set some goals, and also I would say just have fun with it. Do you have any tips for participating in a youth orchestra for the first time? First of all, congratulations getting to play in youth orchestra. Some of my best musical memories of all time were in youth orchestra. And being in youth orchestra was something that really sparked my interest and made me want to continue with music. I would say that my #1 tip would be to know your part inside and out. And that even if you're playing in a section where other people are playing the same thing as you, just knowing that your part is so important, and that if you can know it to the best of your ability by not only knowing what you're playing, but knowing what people are playing around you, studying the recording, maybe even following along with the score, the part that has everybody's parts in it, that's gonna take you to the next level of preparation. And I think that you're gonna have an even more enjoyable time if you know your part really well. So yeah, I would say be as prepared as possible so that you can take advantage of how fun it is to play in youth orchestra. What are some of the best ways to help with tone quality for a middle school band student? Tone is a big topic, and it's a complicated topic, but I would say if you can do some tone studies, like books that have long tones and other exercises that are really focusing on sound, that would be great. The Trevor Y tone book is an amazing book. I will link that below. That's one that I really recommend. And another book, great book, is the Moïse book, the De La Sonorité book. That's a classic that has the quintessential long tone exercises in it. I find that those can be a little bit tedious, especially for younger students, or even for myself sometimes if I am not in the right mindset. But of course they are really amazing in the foundation of everything we're doing with sound. But I think that another great way is just to find a melody that you love. It could be a pop song, it could be anything. There's also the Moïse book, the Tone Development Through Interpretation, and that's a great book too, where you're really thinking about clarity and the beauty of the sound and applying it to these melodies. And I think that's a way that's maybe a bit more approachable. It's a little less abstract than just holding notes. So I would check those books out. But also it's a lot of patience and a lot of practice and just, you know, being consistent with it. And I think also if you can listen, like I mentioned earlier in another question, listening to recordings of the great flutists and just trying to get that sound in your ear, that's gonna be, I think, really valuable. Okay, and let's answer one more for now before we have to go. If you have a story about the worst thing that ever happened to your flute, share. I have a horror story, and some of my friends have crazy horror stories. If you ever heard one secondhand. I dropped my flute like 2 times in the past year. That's my horror story. The first time, I think I was just so tired when I was practicing. I should have not been practicing, and I just like passed it to my other hand because I was going to grab something with my other hand, and I just dropped it. I couldn't believe it. And I was shocked. I just looked down on the ground like, did that really just happen? So I had to take my flute in to be repaired. I'm trying to remember, but I think luckily it didn't, there was nothing that coincided with it needing to be repaired, and I didn't have an audition or anything in that time frame, or a gig or anything. So, but it was an expensive mistake, let's just say that. And then it happened to me, I don't know, several months later again. This time it was my fault. I had it on a table and I was not careful. I knocked it over. It's kind of embarrassing because I know that I should know better. I do know better. I'm always telling my students, like, don't put your flute on a stand, don't leave it out, put it away. Yeah, that's why. Because you're gonna end up with an expensive and annoying mistake, because it takes a long time to fix something like that where there's so much damage from dropping it. So that's my flute horror story, but I'd love to hear if you guys have any about horror stories with your instruments. Leave them in the comments below, because I'm sure we would all like to read some of those. I remember also my teacher, Paula Robeson, telling us a story once where her foot joint just fell off her flute when she was performing, just on the ground. She was playing and it just fell off. That is crazy. Nothing like that has happened to me ever, knock on wood. The worst thing performing wise has just been you know, you get some water in your key and the note doesn't come out or something like that. So that's my flute horror story.